Qtron man, I think yeah, you could probably write it out and do even better. But I mean, I get it. And I think he did a good. I think we're getting somewhere. This is a funny thing about this kind of people that want to be objective. You know, I have a lot in common with them because we want to look at evidence, and it's this functional equivalent. Now, first of all, I want to say I do see this as webs of probability, like you talked about. Okay. Now, there's also an interesting thing, the distinction, yes, about predictive versus in the past. Now, I see the issue in the past. Yes, it's a lot more certain. For example, I could say, I'm certain that he did, fall. And now, after the fact. But all that really is for me is a description of the sensations. I'm sure that the perceptions I have received, now, the complete set, can be described as a situation, a particular situation, someone falling and being okay. Um, so I'm able to describe my perceptions. Now, am I absolutely certain? No, I'm pretty much as I'm asymptotically there too. There's not other options of ways of describing my perceptions. But I was pretty sick and I had pneumonia. I don't know, maybe I went into a coma a few days ago. Okay, now it's not likely, and I don't usually pull the maybe life is dreaming card, but that can happen, and I've had vivid dreams. And not so much as an adult, but I can even remember as a kid, being confused about whether my dream really happened or not. If you have a really realistic dream where you're just talking to somebody ordinarily, so even as an adult, it can be hard to wait. Did we have that conversation? Did I tell you that, or was it? Usually, the dream's weird enough we can discriminate. But the point is that, I mean, I don't think that's the case because I have all this extra correlation information. This is all going normally. Everything's been consistent. Um, but it's enough to not be absolutely certain. And also, there's a different issue. It's not that I wouldn't say I was certain of the fact. I'm what I am is I am. It's like a tautology, you know. You know, this lighter is blue. Okay, I know that. Well, no, I mean I know that my perception is described as blue, and if I see another blue thing, there's a certain similarity. That's what I know. Is it really blue? Well, actually, I know colors in the mind and all of this. So what's the certainties? Well, it's not a certainty, it's a description of perceptions. So all those things you're saying, like, yeah, I'd heard people walking on the top floor. I was downstairs alone in my room. People were upstairs. Yes, I knew there were probably still kids there. But again, I was sick and I was kind of dozing off and stuff. I don't, you don't necessarily know which perceptions were sensible or not, or which ones were sensible, but maybe transmitted through when you're sleeping and you kind of half hear things and it's sort of a real event, but your mind also augments it with something. So these are enough for me not to be absolutely certain. And my point is that you don't ever have to be absolutely certain. Now, the other issue, though, is that this idea of, well, if there is one reality and you're not absolutely certain, you get close enough to where you're asymptotically approaching it. So you can just say, well, I know that. That's what people do with their belief in absolute certainty. And that's a problem because you don't actually know that. It's like as I'm getting closer and closer on the truth, in that case. So I heard something fall. I think it's a kid. I thought it was off the porch. I run around the corner. Nobody's fallen off the porch. My theory is becoming more accurate. Must have fallen out the window. Now, if I went around the window and it was the fan that had fallen out the window, the whole fan, turning the fan on was and the screen becoming unlatched and it being such a low windowsill. These all combined together. And as I'm coming around, maybe it was the fan that fell out. Okay, and at that point, I was asymptotically getting close to a truth, but then it actually flips around entirely. You know. Now, in this case, no, I was right, and so I was asymptotically getting to a truth of there he is there. Now, I would just say that it's still not absolute because of these, yeah, far-fetched reasons, and maybe, I was so sick I was hallucinating, or I was dreaming it, or, those are far-fetched, but those are enough to make it not absolute. My point is that, yeah, they're far-fetched. It's enough for the possibility that you're wrong to be far-fetched is enough to act. The logic is this truth functionality. I'm into that. Like all philosophers, I have a thing, maybe even a fetish for the truth, hard truths, whatever truths, especially truths that are hard to see and counterintuitive or optically elusive kind of things. I love all of those, and most all philosophers of any ilk do. They see truth differently, but we all have this thing that sort of needs to be explained. Because in reality, we are active creatures. And this is another thing where I sometimes don't get, but I expect more allegiance or alliance from kind of the rationalist, objectivist kinds of crowd, because we are trying to live and act. That's an active philosophy. It's about do something, produce. And that's the point. Well, we only need enough truth to act on. And we all have different thresholds of actions, and we should, based on, what's going on, what's the risk and reward of that situation. And so it's we don't justify knowledge generally on the truth. That's the philosopher's fetish. It's a great one. I think it helps society. But as human animals, we are judging when to act. And the threshold should not be and never will be absolute certainty. Even if it was possible. You know? And so that comes back to, wait a second, what if we have a justice system? Shouldn't we be absolutely certain? No, you have to be relatively certain beyond a reasonable doubt. And it takes a long time, and it's an action you want to slow down and do deliberately. Okay, but obviously we cannot live our whole lives like that. You cannot live your whole life as though it was a trial and put all the evidence in that way. You have to act before that. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. Now, again, I realize it's far-fetched things that keep your descriptive knowledge, your certainty of the past, or the certainty of the conditions I was over there. Like I knew people were over that evening. Even I was holed up in my room. I could hear the sounds, and I knew it was still those people. Maybe it's the pipes. No, I knew those things, but it's not absolutely certain. And also, it's a bit different. It's descriptive. Okay, the final thing I want to say, of summarizing this, is we're talking about epistemology, when we're discussing these things, and an objective certainty. We're talking about, do we know that? Okay. When you say, well, there is objective truths, but we don't know them, that's the essence of my approach here. It's epistemology. It's about what we know. It's not about what is. That's ontology. Okay, and unfortunately that's metaphysical, so I don't believe in that. So I don't ask what is. I ask only what we know. That would make me kind of crazy and phantasmagorical and not very compatible with irrationalism if I didn't also have a theory of material reality. But see, I do it through what we know. I don't say it is a certain way. I say what I know is that there's certain consistencies in some of my perceptions. I call those sensible perceptions, and I call whatever it is that they correlate to, which makes them correlate over time with other perceptions of mine and appear to correlate across personalities with perceptions other people have. I call that material reality. So I have an anchor in reality, and I achieve it without absolute certainty. But you bring up things that I was certain about, and I'm not going to give up the word certain. I believe in relative certainty. Okay, and I believe we can do everything we need with relative certainty, and we can have arbitrarily strong, really, relative certainties, but never absolutely strong. Never infinitely strong. You can have a material of arbitrarily strong strength, but it's never going to be infinite. And there's a point at where, okay, there's some physical limit to the maximum. So, okay, I would love to hear another statement of the more careful one, but I think I did get the gist, and it was good. It was a good skeletal back and forth there. I think I made a point on this more clearly than I've ever made, about this functional equivalence, and that why I object to the absolute certainty. I like that you're rational, look at the evidence and believe something real, and I think you can do and Mr. Cropper and everybody talking here can do that with relative certainty. And nothing we want to do, because we're not violent, evil people, nothing we want to do requires absolute certainty. I'll make one more comment too. It's kind of like with the Nazis. Yeah, we all want to say they're absolutely wrong, but in the end, what if God was a Nazi? Turns out, we're atheists, right? So we can do this. Let's say there is a God. Turns out he's a Nazi. He gets to say what's good and bad, and so Nazis are good. So I'm wrong. I don't care. Fine. I just don't want to be on the same side as the Nazis. If God gets to say they're right, fine. Then I'm bad. I don't care. I just don't want to be the same as Nazi. See what I'm saying? I'm on the other side of that.